Welcome to the Idiot's Guide. I'm Mackie Hall, and I'm passionate about skateboard-inspired art, especially from vanguard companies like Santa Cruz. Artist Jim Phillips is the man behind the iconic Screaming Hand logo that has become their main identity piece. Another artist, Baloo Caroli, has taken over some of the creative reins over at Santa Cruz and over at Vans Off the Wall. Check out some of his work right here. It's definitely some good stuff. As these guys show, art created by hand is always unique and powerful. Here's why I'm talking about this. You can build your art by hand, import it into Illustrator, and then use Illustrator's editing tools to get the results you want. All right, so here's what you're going to do. First, you're going to sketch your art. Second, you're going to ink it up. Third, you're going to take either a high resolution photograph or you're going to scan your image. Save it in a place where you can find it. It doesn't have to be perfect. We can fix any misses in Illustrator. And by the way, if you want to follow along using this exact art, a link is right below. Go ahead and grab it and let's get started. Knowing these things simply expands what you can do with Illustrator and gives you another opportunity to add your personality to your work. That being said, let's get started. All right, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a new document. Our new document will have a width of 1,000 points, a height of 1,000 points, a single artboard, and if you scroll down, we'll be using the RGB color mode. Now, if you're going to print, all you need to do is select the CMYK color mode. However, since we're going only to screen on this, we'll select RGB. Let's go ahead and create. Now, before we get started, let's go over a couple things. The first thing we're going to mention is that we are using the Essentials Classic workspace. If you want to switch to Essentials Classic, all you need to do is go to the top right-hand corner of your page, switch workspace, and select Essentials Classic. Go ahead and select that. Now, the reason I use Essentials Classic is because that's got the most elements visible on screen. That's important because I like to use my screen elements. With that being said, select the workspace that is most convenient and usable for you. Next thing I want to mention is we're going to be using Smart Guides. To switch to Smart Guides, all you need to do is go to View, select Smart Guides or Control U. Next thing I want to mention is that we're going to be using the bottom center of our page to highlight tips and tricks, hotkey, and key command recommendations. On that note, we're building our piece out using a PC. That means our hotkey and key command recommendations will be done using the Control key. If you're using a Mac, all you need to do is anytime the Control key is recommended, select the Command key instead. Now that that's been said, let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and place our scanned or photographed image. We do that by going to File, Place, and then selecting our image. In this case, we're going to be selecting skull1.jpg. Once we've got it, all we need to do is click anywhere on our artboard to anchor it. There we go. Once we've got that set and sorted, let's go ahead and scale our artwork down to 25%. We do that by double-clicking our scale tool and writing in 25. Hit OK. Now that that's done, we can zoom out on our page to see our artwork. Next thing we want to do is we want to align our piece horizontally to the center of our artboard. We do that by clicking Align Center Horizontal on our top bar. And then we want to center align our piece vertically as well. We'll do the same thing on our top bar. If you don't see your align tools, all you need to do is go to Window, Align, or Shift F7. Let's go ahead and maximize our artboard in view. Now that we've got our piece centered on our artboard, let's go ahead and rotate it. We'll double click on our rotate tool and we'll rotate it 90 degrees. Next thing we want to do is we want to prepare to trace our image. But before we do that, we don't need to trace this entire image. Instead, we just want to trace the skull. So we're going to select Crop Image. Click OK on the pop-up. And then let's go ahead and drag either the corner or the sides in so that only the skull is being traced. Let's go. Click Enter. And there we go, we're ready to start our trace. To trace our image, all you need to do is go to the Image Trace button. Let's go ahead and click on the down arrow right next to it. That'll bring the drop down to show all of the trace presets. Now the first trace is High Fidelity Photo. That's going to be the slowest trace because it's going to want to trace all the individual colors. The Low Fidelity Photo is going to be doing something similar. And then if you want to trace 3, 6, or 16 colors, you can select any of those elements. Finally, you can trace shades of gray, black and white logo, sketched art, silhouettes, line art, or a technical drawing. In this case, we want to trace what will be a black and white logo. So let's go ahead and select that. We'll click on that, click OK to the pop-up. And there you go. The image has been traced. Note that when we trace an image, you can see the trace results before expanding it. You click on the trace result, you can see the trace result with outlines. Click outlines, select outlines with source image, or just view the source image. What I want to see is just the tracing result. There you go right there. So now we can expand it. When we expand it, we leave our artwork just as outlines. Let's click expand. There you go. Now if you go to outlines, hit Control Y, note that our scanned or photographed artwork is now solely outlines. One negative part about this though, however, is note the number of dots in our trace. That's fine, but what that does is it leads to a jagged image. Let's go ahead and zoom in and we can see lots of areas in our trace right here are over detailed and jagged. That's something we want to get away from when we trace our scanned art. Let's bring our page back into view and let's go ahead and fix that. Now with our image selected, let's go ahead and go to Object, Path, and let's go ahead and select Simplify. Now you'll notice when the Simplify top bar comes up, you can go to the left to select the least points. Look what happens when I drag all the way over to the left. The artwork gets really mushy. That might work. However, it doesn't work for my case here. Now I can drag it all the way to the right to select the most points and note that we're right back where we started. In this case, what we want to do is we want to select somewhere in between. Instead of 1,500 points that we've got to start, let's take it down to about 500. I think that looks good right there. Now we've got that combination of our artwork and the smoothness that Illustrator can deliver. Another thing we can do is we can click on our More Options and we can see what Illustrator can do with the Simplify tool. It's pretty handy. In this case, I don't want to do anything. I'll click OK. And let's go ahead and start playing with our traced image. The first thing that I want to mention is that if we go to Outlines, note that our image trace included the white border right there. And so what we can do straight away is we can grab our Direct Selection tool, drag across an edge. Let's hit backspace twice to delete that. Let's escape outlines again. And let's go ahead and zoom in our piece just a little bit. Notice that while our piece is pretty good, it does have a few misses. If I'm looking at the cheek, we've got this little point right here that kind of pops off that I don't like. I've also on the nose, I've got this little area that pops as well. Those are a couple things that I want to fix. The way we fix that is let's go back on over to Outlines and let's start playing with our art. Now, when we go to Outlines, you'll see a couple of things. The first thing you'll see is that in some areas, if I zoom right in over the jaw, for instance, you've got multiple paths running over each other. That's just one of those things that Illustrator does. It adds multiple paths when it traces sometimes that it doesn't need to. In order for us to make sure that our artwork is clean and that there are no legacy white outlines or black outlines anywhere, we want to delete those paths when they are visible. In this case, we want to delete this first one right here. Let's grab that. Let's hit backspace twice or delete. And we have deleted that extra path. Now, if it has deleted a filled path within that shape, don't fret, we'll re-add that later. Let's bring our page into view once again, and then let's go ahead and focus on the cheek. We're going to zoom in on the cheek once again. That looks pretty good right there. Let's make sure our direct select tool is selected, and let's click on that anchor point. Now you'll notice once it's been selected that we can hover over the handles, drag them around until we've got that proper curve. That might work out just right there. Let's deselect and see how that is. That curve does look pretty good right there, but it also does something else. It reveals a shape path underneath. So in order to make sure that we stay out of trouble, let's go ahead and delete that shape path underneath. We'll grab our direct selection tool again, and we'll click on that path. Let's hit backspace twice. And I think we're better off. Let's bring our whole page back into view. Let's escape outlines. And I think we're looking a little bit better now. Let's go ahead and do one more fix, and let's get rid of that extra bump on the nose. Let's go back to outlines. And now let's see what we can do to fix this little bump right here. What I'm going to do, since they're so close together, let's go ahead and zoom in just a little bit more. And then let's select this bump right here. We'll click on the anchor point, and let's go ahead and delete it just for kicks. Notice that when we do that, again, we're revealing another path underneath. So before we do anything, let's go ahead and delete that path underneath. Let's hit backspace twice. And now we've just got this one path that we want to fill. So let's fix that by grabbing our pen tool. Let's click on an anchor point and drag it out just like that. And then let's go ahead and finish our path. Let's finish our curve path. That looks pretty good right there. And let's finish it out at the other anchor point right there. Let's go ahead and deselect by grabbing our selection tool, clicking anywhere on our artboard, and let's go ahead and zoom out. And let's escape outlines to see what we look like. That looks a lot better right there. Now that we've done that, let's go ahead and draw a shape that we're going to place behind our skull to make sure that we haven't deleted any shapes that we might need. So let's grab our rectangle tool. Let's drag out on top of our skull, just like that. And let's change the fill color of this rectangle to red. Let's double click on that. And let's change our fill to red. It doesn't matter what type of red, that looks okay right there. Note what just happened, by the way. Why didn't it change to red? The reason is when we converted our imported image to paths, we selected black and white. And by default, Illustrator set our color model to grayscale. The way we fix that is pretty straightforward. All we need to do is select everything in our image. We'll do that by hitting Control A. And let's go to Edit, Edit Colors, and let's convert to RGB. Now that we've done that, let's go ahead and grab our selection tool. We'll deselect all of our shapes, and let's select our red shape once again. We'll double click on the fill color, and let's change our fill to red. Just like that, we'll click OK. There you go, that's a little bit better. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to select Object, Arrange, and let's select Send to Back. Let's deselect. Note right away that the face part of our skeleton is missing its shape. So how do we bring that shape back in? One way to do it is to grab our pen tool and let's trace around the entire missing area and we'll bring that shape back. That seems like an awful lot of work, so let's make it easy on ourselves. The way we do that is we're going to select our entire skull. Let's drag across our entire piece right there. Let's hold our Shift key and deselect our background color. And once we've done that, let's go ahead and grab our Shape Builder tool. We'll click on it right here. And note that when we hover over specific areas of our shape, it lights up. The reason it lights up is because Illustrator is asking us if we want to create a shape in that space. With that in mind, when it lights up over the face part of our skull, let's go ahead and click. Now that we've done that, all we need to do is grab our direct selection tool. Let's go ahead and deselect that. And we've added a shape. The reason we can't see that shape is because our new shape has our default fill, which is at the time red. So with our direct selection tool selected, let's go ahead and click on that face part of the skull. And let's go ahead and change that color to white. Double click on our fill. Let's drag it all the way over to white, just like that. Click OK. And there you go. Let's go ahead and deselect that. Notice that our entire skull has filled shapes around it. This is exactly what we want. Let's go ahead and delete that red background. And with that being said, let's bring our entire page back into view. That looks pretty good right there. Now, what if we want to change the color of our bandana? We can do one of two things. We can use our direct selection tool, of course, and click in the middle of that fill, and then double click our fill and change the color. Let's again change it to maybe a darker red. That looks pretty good right there. Let's deselect that. We can also do something else if we're going to be working with lots of shapes and we want to use our selection tool. Let's go ahead and undo this first. Let's deselect. What we can do is we can grab our selection tool. We can select our skull. Notice that it's selecting the entire skull. And let's go ahead and select Object, Ungroup. Now with our selection tool, we can select any part of the skull individually and manipulate that as we see fit. In this case, what we want to do is we'll click on our bandana shape. Let's double click on our color and change it to red. Now that our shape has been broken up into individual shapes by ungrouping, we can also do a few more things. What if we wanted to add a texture to our shape? Well, in this case, all we need to do again is select our shape. That's the bandana right there. Let's go ahead and click on our color swatches, and let's go ahead and pick out one of the default patterns. In this case, we'll click on Pompadour. That might look good. Let's go ahead and deselect. That's kind of a good look right there for a bandana for sure. Let's click on another one. Let's select our shape. Let's click on Foliage, and let's deselect. That's kind of another good look for a bandana. We can also add a gradient to it. All we need to do is select our bandana shape, and let's go ahead and click on our orange to yellow gradient. That's kind of an interesting shape right there. What if we want to modify the direction of our gradient? All we need to do is click on our gradient tool and drag from one point to the other. I'll start up high, click, I'll hold my shift key to make sure it's perfectly vertical, and I'll drag down to where I want it to be. That looks pretty good right there. Let's grab our selection tool. Let's deselect our artwork. That's pretty good. Let's do one more thing. Let's select our entire shape. Let's go to Object, Group, or Control G, deselect our shape, and we are done. All right, now that we've completed this piece, give yourselves a moment and figure out how to do it with your own art. With that being said, if you have any questions, comments, or critiques, leave them in the comments section below. Otherwise, throw me a like. I'd really appreciate that. And otherwise, subscribe. I'd appreciate that just a little bit more. We'll see you next time. Peace.